Thanks for staying with us. Well, we have a really important and timely conversation today that's touching the lives of many families across Jamaica. Recently, the Bustamante Hospital for Children made a significant update to its policy allowing parents, guardians, and caregivers to request overnight stays with their hospitalized children. Well, this comes after growing calls from caregivers and a petition launched by the Office of the Prime Minister, which has already gathered over 11,000 signatures.
Right, but there is a big question there, Dennis, and viewers. Should this overnight stay be considered a privilege that parents need to request, or should it be a guaranteed right for every parent with a sick child? We're joined this morning by medical doctor and attorney at law, colleague and former classmate, Dr. Xinyu Addae-Lee, who's been closely following this issue, and she's here to break it down all for us. Good morning, Doc and counsel. How are you doing?
Good morning, friend.
Yes,
how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And
Thanks for having me.
you know, to all the mommies and all the daddies, caregivers, and all the persons who have signed this petition already, it just goes to show that this is an issue that is it's a hot button issue for many persons. But talk to us about the genesis of it all and what really is this policy all about?
Okay, so you know, the first time let me just give a backstory. So ever since in medical school, I would have felt very strongly about this issue, right? And then this petition came up where this parent actually experienced it and as a result of it decided to launch this petition on the Office of the Prime Minister website. And this petition is basically saying, just recently, he's had this experience where he was not allowed to stay with his child. He also gives us details on other children who were crying, other parents who were torn away from their children in this institution, right? So once this happened, of course, being passionate about it for so long, it obviously triggered in me a desire to push it as hard as I can to get this policy to be changed.
So as of before the petition was launched, parents were not allowed to stay with their children at the Bustamante Hospital for Children?
Yes, parents were not allowed. And even the way that Sarah has replied to it, it's suggesting that the policy has always been and the option has always been available for parents to stay. But it's a little disingenuous because no parent has been given this option, right? So when your child is being admitted, they're told these are the visiting hours and you must leave. So much so that since this article, you know, many people have reached out to me to say, you know, I was escorted by the security to leave, and you know, I was really ripped away from my child while the child was crying. So we know that this is not a policy that the staff is actually, you know, making persons aware of. That's number one. And number two, really and truly, this is a right.
Yes.
And we're not looking for your... It's not a privilege. It's not a privilege.
Tell us.
Right. So, I mean, as the Charter of Fundamental Freedoms, Rights and Freedoms, right, provides for children to have a very specific protection. They're supposed to be protected, right? And we know that as a child, when you are in a hospital situation, you're emotionally, physically, and psychologically affected by being torn away from your parents,
and surrounded by strangers.
Surrounded by strangers in the most vulnerable time of your life, and especially when you're sick, you're even more vulnerable, right? So children are vulnerable by virtue of them being children. And they're also more vulnerable because they're sick and more dependent, want to stick on to their parents because they are sick, right? So we know that this can cause long-term trauma, right? This actually lengthens their hospital stay. This increases the negligence in the hospital because medications will be missed. Children will be given things that they're allergic to. Children don't know these things. They can't speak up for themselves. They can't advocate for themselves.
So if they have a parent there present,
the parent
then
must
they can
be
be
present,
that middle person
so
to regulate.
So you and I know without consent, that is assault or battery, right? So a lot of things are being performed, a lot of procedures are being performed on our children in the absence of the parent. They're not asking permission, and even parents don't realize that every single procedure that is performed on their child should be done with their consent. But they come back and they hear, oh, we did a CT scan, oh, we did a this, we did a that, we did a that on your child. And it should not be so. It should not be so.
Help us to understand, how do we operationalize a right in this instance? Put on your doctor hat. I've been to Busta a few times. Thankfully, I've not had, as a parent, the need. And unless you're in the situation, you don't really understand, even if you've been proximal to the situation. But in terms of just the dynamics of, for instance, Bustamante Children's Hospital. So your child is having a medical emergency. You take your child to you're there. Are you to stay one side and wait? Are you allowed by the child's bedside per se? Is there a time by which you need to leave? What usually obtains? The mother and father or the caregiver have to go home and come back, or change and come back, or they tell you, I'm going to sleep out in the car, I'm not leaving. How does it work? And then to make it now that it is a right, what do we put in place?
Right.
What needs to be made different so that it can work? So,
first of all, I mean, what you're describing is basically how it is. A lot of parents are marginalized, and I think the marginalization it's much more severe than it needs to be, right? Because we do need to be there to support our child, to even get a blood test. To bring them around a corner and traumatize them is another thing that every parent should stand for and say, no. I'll hold my child's hand, and I need to witness what you're doing, right? This is another thing that traumatized me as a medical student, as a young doctor, to see how a child is being treated when the parent is not present, as opposed to when the parent is present, all right? Because we have voiceless children. We always need to keep that in mind, right? So, yes, parents are put aside. Parents are told to leave at a certain time, and yes, a lot of people will end up staying in the parking lot to try to stay as close as possible. However, what we need to, we need to think less about what infrastructure needs to be in place and and kind of focus on the fact that this is a basic human right. We have to protect our children. If we treat them less, knowing very well that the studies have shown, maybe we can say that we were ignorant to how severe this could have harmed someone, but I'll say this: a basic human right is basic because we feel it.
Yeah.
We don't need to look it up. We don't need to find it in the law. We feel it. We know it. You witness it, and you just know this is not wrong. This is not right. Do you understand me? So let's say that there was some ignorance to how severe it was really affecting children, because I'll tell you, people have reached out to me and honestly can recount their experiences from when they were 5 and had to be hospitalized, when they had to go through it. So this is a lasting trauma psychologically that we cannot stand for.
But sorry to interrupt, but you know, time is of the essence, right? But I want to say that this is something that we all, parents, everybody, every well-thinking human being should be a part of this and be championing this cause. How do we rally behind this cause? Where do we sign up? What do we need to do to get this as a right, not as a privilege per se, just to make sure that every child is taken care of and that every parent or caregiver is allowed to be there with their child.
Right. So, I mean, the petition is a start, right? So once you get enough signatures, 15,000, and I think one of the things we need to mention is when you sign this petition, go into your email to make sure that you get the authentication link in order to be counted, because we have a discrepancy in who has signed this petition. And once we get a response from the Office of the Prime Minister, if it is not suiting, if it's not honoring our children and actually protecting them, then we would have to go forward and mount a constitutional challenge to the policies in all of our children's hospital, except at UWI. At UWI, you're able to stay with your child.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You understand me? So it's not about the infrastructure that needs to be put in place. It's we can't do any less than this.
Yeah.
Whatever you
and
have,
that is why
we
I'm
have
wondering,
to
like,
work
so,
with it.
Because
so
I thought
why,
that it
why
was-
not just say, okay, it is, and it is?
It is, right. Bring your chair, bring a little fold-out beach chair, whatever it is. We don't have chairs, but you can. And you can make it what you want. A lot of people will say, oh, you know, the parents are going to, you know, there's not enough space. The parents might be unruly, da-da-da-da. Okay, but it is a right. Now, you, as an individual, can have that right taken away from you
If you violate.
Yes, and if you are affecting the rest of the
Exactly, right,
public.
right.
But you have a right. We can't take it away from you and then decide who we give it to willy-nilly like that. That's not, that's
Okay.
you know, leading to biases and other things.
Yeah.
Right.
And at the end of, at the root of it is protecting our children and ensuring that they are not traumatized, right?
Exactly.
Because traumatized and broken children turn into traumatized and broken adults. And
Exactly.
these kinds of hospital visits can have long-lasting effects. So is there a website? Is there where is the link? Where do we need to
Right.
sign?
Jamaica
and
House
is there a
petitions.
cutoff point?
So I believe that the petition, you have three months in
Yes.
order to get enough signatures, and we're almost there. But as
April
I said, there's
30th
that,
is a cutoff
yes,
point, I
April
get to
30th.
understand, yeah.
So there's that discrepancy, right? Because a lot of people are not clicking that link to authenticate their email address. So they need to do that, because even though you may have over 20,000 people that have signed, only 11,000 is being counted. So first of all, yeah, that's the way to do it. It's on the
parents
office
with
of the Prime
children with
Minister.
disabilities. Like, I don't even think the hospital is probably staffed enough to pay attention to each and every child. So having
Probably
a parent
not.
there, Dennis, is actually inherent to your benefit, because the parent can
Exactly.
actually watch. If the drip done, they can say, nurse, the drip done, or doc, so on. So, you know what I mean? So
Yes.
to me, I'm helping you too.
Yes, and in
One thing
some
was certain,
countries,
you're not getting me out.
Yeah,
Right.
You're not getting me out.
No, me not.
Exactly.
No, remember,
Who
say
you
me
going to
jump
tell
in
me
the
if
bed,
you leave?
Dennis.
Right.
No, remember, say me go handcuff myself to the bed.
Yes.
Me not leave.
yes, because instinctually you know that it cannot work this way. In some countries, they actually insist you don't have a choice. In
Oh, you're
some
gonna get
countries,
me
you
out.
have
How?
to stay.
Dennis,
Yeah.
you see certain topic me like that, but for them for me, you know, come, you understand?
Yeah.
I just don't see how
Me
it's
see my
gonna
husband right now, he must say, baby, yeah, me just see what, see me now,
Eh?
I see, honey, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that part, right?
No,
Yeah.
no, it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna
Guys, parents all, let us go on www.opm.gov.jm/participate and get this petition signed.
And
Our
then go
children-
into your email
and check.
and tick so that you can be
Click that
properly
link.
counted. Click that link so that you can be counted.
Please stop what you're doing right now. And parents, don't say that you might have never had a cause to go to Bustamante, but don't think that it will never happen
It will
to
never
you.
happen, yeah.
And even if it has never happened to you, it doesn't mean that it should happen to any other child. Let us all come together and let our voices be heard in this very practical way to get the change that we want to see. Big ups to Kingston Parenting Group, all the mommies, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, girls,
Yeah,
hello.
yeah.
Who run the world? Moms and dads, okay?
So
all the daddies there.
I name parenting group and I just mom's Mary at that, but
It's just really moms, honestly.
Dennis, just relax.
no,
Yeah.
it named to call it Kingston Moms Group then.
We'll see if we can make
It's a
an
Kingston
allowance for
it's
you.
a Kingston Moms Group. That's it name.
That's not the name of our group.
It named Kingston. Well, that is what it is in its spirit and execution.
So then it starts out Kingston Parenting Father
Right.
Edition of the Father
Yeah.
chapter.
Jamaican dads.
Yeah. Start that. Start that chapter. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
But that would be the quietest group and nothing would happen. in it. So let us not even go there.
Father
because
God,
I
I
know
cannot.
my
Our guest
husband
has
will
been
join the
Dr.
group.
Xinyu Addae-Lee, medical doctor and attorney at law. Coming up next, we'll be networking with the Premier Club. So be sure to stay tuned for that and more on Sunrise.
Nice.